Welcome to the channel JIV and CIV Made Simple. This is our IIBF CCFE, that is certification course in foreign exchange. 28 March 2026 memory based question and answer session with explanation. So we have collected these questions from the aspirant who have appeared in the examination, and this will help you to see what are the important topics, what type of question are being asked, whether more case studies are there, whether more one liner are there, or mixed type statement type questions are there. You will be able to gauge. So overall this will give you a clear idea of the question being asked. If you have not seen our previous video, I have prepared previous year question of the last 1 year, and this is available on our channel. You can check out the description section for more detail. So let's get started with our very first question. This is the first question in the form of case studies which were asked. So Messrs Sky Height Export Limited, okay, so they have taken $5 million from an external commercial borrowing, through an external commercial borrowing, that's called ECB, from a foreign lender. You know it very well that ECB is a popular mechanism of raising fund. From where? From the foreign lender, isn't it? And the money is meant for importing capital machinery. Clearly they have mentioned. Now the company already has an EFC account, Exchange Earned Foreign Currency account. Obviously this is a foreign currency account. The finance manager want to credit the $5 million directly into EFC account, right, to avoid the exchange rate risk. Yeah, this is the use of the EFC account, that it help you avoid, it help you hedge the exchange rate volatility. The question is very simple, that is it allowed under FEMA to park ECB proceed in EFC account? So parking of ECB proceed, which of the following statement is correct? Option number A, that company can credit the ECB proceed to the EFC account as it is a foreign currency. Option number B, ECB proceed cannot be credited into EFC account because they represent a liability and not foreign exchange earning. Option C, yes, up to 50% of the ECB proceed can be credited to EFC account with prior approval from RBI. Option number D, ECB proceed can be credited to the EFC account provided they are utilized within 30 days. So this is a very good question. Now let me explain what is the basic logic behind the question. So this question tests the difference between, so this question tests you the difference between the foreign exchange earning and foreign exchange borrowing. Two things are there. One is the foreign exchange earning, second is the foreign exchange borrowing. So it is the difference between these two. So remember, EFC account or Exchange Earned Foreign Currency account is only for foreign exchange earning purpose. It is for foreign exchange earning. Like what kind of exchange earning? Like that may be the export proceed, which means you have exported some goods and you are receiving the payment, that's called export proceed. It may be for professional remittance, yes, or it may be for commission income. So these are the various way. These are the various uses of the EFC account. Okay. Now let's understand this very clearly. If you look at the ECB, or we call it exchange commercial borrowing, right? External commercial borrowing. So ECB money is not your income. This is not your income, isn't it? It is a kind of borrowed money. The money you have borrowed, right, from foreign. So it is a kind of borrowed money. So even though money comes in foreign currency, it creates a liability, isn't it? Money is coming in foreign currency, but this is a kind of liability. It creates a liability because you have to repay. Obviously you have to repay ECB with interest. Interest also you have to pay because it is kinds of borrowing. So FEMA make a clear distinction between these two. Between what? Between the money you earn and money you borrow. Clear distinction between these two. Money you earn and money you borrow, right? So what is the FEMA rule? As per the ECB parking guideline, please go through the ECB parking guideline. You cannot credit the ECB proceed to the EFC account. There must be kept in a separate foreign currency account. You have to keep in the separate foreign currency account with the AD bank, with the authorized dealer bank. Okay, or they can be converted into INR. Yes, they can be converted into INR and kept in India as per the permitted norms. So the rule exists so that RBI can track end use of the fund. Yes, this is a very important. Why this is a rule? So that RBI can track. Okay, so you have taken ECB. So basically for what purpose you are using? That is called end use. RBI want to track the end use of the fund. So borrowed money is not mixed with export earning. Please note this down. Very, very important aspect we have just discussed. Now, if you look at the option that they have provided, option A says that company can credit ECB proceed into EFC account. No, this is wrong, because EFC is not a general foreign currency account. It is strictly for earning purpose only. What about option B? Option B says that ECB proceed cannot be credited because they represent a liability. Exactly. B is the correct one. C says 50%. No, no, no. Those no such rule exist about 50% crediting to EFC account. No. What about option D? It says that ECB proceed can be credited to EFC account provided they are utilized within 30 days. No, no, no. This time limit does not change it. So remember, what we learned from this discussion is that this is a very simple learning that we can get from this question, is that EFC represent what? Earning. EFC is about the earning, and ECB, ECB is about the EMIs, isn't it? So EFC only represent earning. ECB, it represent create EMI, it create liability. ECB create EMI, and obviously it create liability. So if money give you future EMI, it can never go to EFC account, never. So what we learned, that EFC is only meant for foreign exchange earning. ECB proceed are borrowed fund. These are not the income. So borrowed foreign currency is a kind of liability. So ECB proceed must either be parked in a separate foreign currency account with the AD bank or as per the ECB parking norm. I hope this is crystal clear. Now friends, let's switch our focus to the question number 2, which were asked in the examination. This is a very good question. Let's break down the question first. So Mr. Rajesh is an NRI staying in London. Let me highlight the keyword. So he's an NRI who is staying in London, and he opened an FCNRB account, right? So one thing is quite clear from these two questions, that IIBF is more particular about the different type of account. So what I would suggest, that please make a note of all these accounts in a separate paper and revise them on little bit. And if you go through our study material, I have provided separate quizzes based on them, so that you can practice sufficient quiz before the examination, and this will ultimately help you in there. So let's come back to the question. So Mr. Rajesh is an NRI living in London, and he opened a foreign currency non-resident B account. Fixed deposit of how much? $50,000 for a period of 3 years with the commercial bank in India. Now he wants to know how frequently interest will be calculated and compounded as per the RBI rule. So the question is, as per the RBI master direction on the interest rate on deposit, what is the standard compounding interval for an FCNRB deposit with a maturity of 1 year or more? Monthly, quarterly, half yearly or yearly? Answer of the question, let me introduce you to our foreign exchange comprehensive course. In this particular course, you get unit-wise theory, MCQ, PDF, unit-wise theory, video explanation, RBI recent circular, and I'm adding mock test also in this particular course. We are in process of adding, and within 10 to 15 days it will be added. So if you go through the theory and MCQ, I have divided into 5 modules, and module-wise quick revision PDF is there, theory and MCQ PDF is there. Along with that, case study separate PDF is there. Previous year question, almost you can see 12 previous year question PDF are there. If you go through only these much PDF, this will tell you that these topics are so much important from examination point of view. In addition to that, to cover those topics, you can go through this folder, separate MCQs covering each and every part. And not only that, we will get theory explanation also, so that you can understand the concept clearly. So if you want to get access to this, just WhatsApp me on the number shown on the screen, or you can check out the link in the description section of the video. Come back to this question, let's discuss. So let's understand what FCNRB is. So FCNRB is foreign currency non-resident deposit. That is the full form of FCNRB. Okay, so deposit is kept in foreign currency like dollar. So if you look at the deposit, how deposits are kept, so they are kept in foreign currency like dollar, like GBP, like euro. Okay, these are the various way in which deposits are kept in the foreign currency. And one more thing, that exchange rate risk, please remember, exchange rate risk is fully borne by the bank. Yeah, bank bear the exchange rate risk. It is not borne by the depositor. Remember, depositor has nothing to do with the exchange rate risk. It is borne by the bank. Now comes the interest question. That is what the question is all about, right? Interest. So RBI does not give freedom to bank to decide interest compounding interval randomly. Please understand, RBI never give freedom to the bank that you go and decide your interest compounding frequency randomly. No. So what RBI does? RBI has laid down a standard compounding rule. Yes. So they have laid down a compounding rule. And what is that rule? See, the rule says that if you have an FCNRB deposit with a maturity with maturity more than 1 year, in that case, interest must be compounded. Interest must be compounded 180 days. 180 days or every 6 months. Both are the same. So compounding frequency should be 180 days. This is mandatory. This is not optional. So even if a customer say that I want interest only at maturity, still underlying calculation and compounding remain half yearly. Bank just pay the accumulated amount at the maturity. So remember, payout choice, right? Payout choice is not compounding rule. Suppose there is a customer which says that okay, no, I don't want every 6 months, I want at maturity, but still interest will be computed on 180 days and it must be compounded every 6 months, right? I hope this is crystal clear. So now let's apply this rule in this particular question. What they have given, so deposit they have given, I think $50,000, 3-year deposit type is FCNRB. So therefore interest is calculated and compounded half yearly or 180 days, whatever you call it, both are the same. So option number C is the correct one. Yeah, C is the correct one. Okay, so you can remember it like this. FCNR 6-6 rule. Yeah, this way you can remember it. So what does it mean? It means FCNRB account, 6 means 6 month and 6 means 60 day. Sir, what is the meaning of 60 day? 180 day. Okay, either you call it 6 month. So FCNRB means what? Foreign, and foreign, remember 6 month cycle is there. So they are maintained in foreign currency. Clearly name itself suggests foreign currency. For tenure more than 1 year, interest must be compounded half yearly at 180 days interval. And customer may take interest at maturity, but compounding frequency cannot change because RBI rule is mandatory, not bank specific. Now let's look at the question number 3. Again, this is a very interesting question based on case study. Let's go through it. Based in US, she has 2-year FCNRB deposit of $10,000 and it has just now matured. After maturity, she takes principal plus interest, and then after maturity, what she does, she takes principal plus interest into her NRE saving account to meet the local expense, right? So she take principal and interest, convert the dollar amount to INR rupees and credit her into NRE saving account, right? NRE saving account for use in India. So the question is at what rate, right? So question is at what rate will the bank convert Dr. Anjali dollar proceed into Indian rupees for credit to her NRE account? That is the question. So the rate it has been asked. At what exchange rate will the bank convert dollar to INR? So options they have given, TT selling rate of the bank ruling on the date of conversion. Option number B, TT buying rate. Option number C, average of the buying and selling rate for the previous month. Option number D, exchange rate that was prevailing on the date of FCNR deposit was originally opened. So these are the 4 options they have provided, and you have to tell at what exchange rate will the bank convert her dollar proceed into INR rupees. Very good question it is. So first of all, let's understand the core concept in this particular question. So you can think of it like this. Dr. Anjali is giving foreign currency to the bank. You think about like this. This is the bank. This is the bank. And this is Dr. Anjali. Okay, so see what she is doing. She is giving foreign currency dollar into the bank, and bank is giving her INR to the Dr. Anjali. So effectively what bank is doing? Bank is buying the foreign currency from the customer, isn't it? Bank is buying dollar from the customer. So effectively, right, and whenever a bank buy foreign currency, please remember, so we have to see what bank is doing. It is buying foreign currency. In that case, we will use the TT buying rate. Okay, it is TT buying rate. And one more thing to note is that, this NRE account at the non-resident external account, what is the denomination of this account? Yes, this is, rupee denominated account. Rupee denominated account. And the moment dollar is converted into rupee, exchange rate rule get activated. So there is something called, exchange rate rule. The moment dollar is converted into INR, exchange rate rule get activated. So now apply this rule in this case. So in this case, what we are observing, so there is an FCNR fund, right? She has FCNR deposit of $10,000. Destination is the NRE saving account. So basically foreign currency is being converted into INR. Customer give dollar to the bank. TT buying rate is applicable. Also note that rate used will be rate prevailing on the date of conversion. So obviously the date on which this conversion happened. right? Date of conversion. Old rate when FCNRB was opened has no relevance here. So if you look at the option that they have given, yes, A option say TT selling rate. Selling rate is used when the customer buy foreign currency, not here. Option number B, TT buying rate, exactly. Option number C, average rate. See, average rate, RBI does not permit averaging of the past rate for such conversion. And option D, C, D says for FCNR protect against past exchange risk. So conversion always happen at the current rate. No, yes, this is wrong, right? FCNR protect against the past exchange risk. So conversion always happen at the current rate. So remember what we learned from this discussion is that whenever customer give dollar, bank buy, so buying rate has to be applied. And or one more way you can remember it like this. You can remember it like this. So you have FCNR, you are converting that FCNR to RNRE, right? So in that case, bank is buying the forex. Bank is buying the forex. So TT buying rate will be applicable. Okay. So FCNRB deposit are maintained in foreign currency. NRE account is INR denominated. Conversion from foreign currency to INR means bank is buying foreign currency. So TT buying rate will be applicable. Now question number 4. Question number 4 is a very good question. So let's carefully understand this case study. Mr. Advait, he is an NRI living in Canada. So he purchased 3 residential flat in Mumbai in the year 2015 using foreign exchange remitted from abroad. Now in 2026, what happened? He sell all the 3 property. Total sale value is $1.2 million, right? So purchase at I think $9 lakh, and now it has become $1.2 million. So and one more thing, all the capital gain tax is India is already paid. Now he want to repatriate the amount back to Canada. The question asks, under the RBI repatriation of sale proceed rule, how much he can repatriate and what is the restriction on number of property? Very good question it is. It is your understanding. So is there any restriction as per the repatriation of sale proceed rule? If it is, how much is that? Right. So that this question is all about. Let's get started. Let's understand the basic concept in this particular question. So friends, option they have given, he can repatriate entire $1.2 million for all the 3 property. Option B, he can repatriate up to $9 lakh, but repatriation is restricted $1.2 million, but only after a mandatory lock-in period of 10 years. Option number D, he can repatriate the proceed of all the 3 property provided these 3 did not exceed $1 million per financial year. So the question is based on very specific FEMA provision, right? So don't mix it with 1 million NRO route, right? So remember what is the rule? It says that FEMA under FEMA, whenever NRI he buy property using foreign exchange. So basically what he is doing, he is buying property, and to buy that he is using the forex, and later he sell it. Okay. So RBI allow repatriation, but under 2 big conditions. The first condition is that quantum of repatriation, which means repatriation under this route is restricted to the amount of foreign exchange originally bought into the India. Obviously, he bought the property by bringing foreign currency. So only that much foreign currency he can take out. So for example, let's suppose that original forex investment was $9 lakh. Suppose this was the original forex investment. And the sale proceed, after selling, how much he is getting? He is getting $1.2 million. So maximum repatriation that he can do is $9 lakh only, because this 9 lakh he bought from foreign, only this much he can take. Excess 3 lakh gain that he got, excess $3 lakh gain cannot be repatriated under this rule. And there is another rule, rule number 2, which says that this is the most common exam trap. It says that for residential property, right, repatriation of sale proceed is allowed for maximum 2 resident only. So you can repatriate for maximum of 2 resident property only. So in this case, what Advait did, he sold 3 flats. As you can see clearly mentioned, he sold how many flats? 3 flats he sold. Okay. So he can use this repatriation route only for 2 property, not all the 3. So applying both the rule, amount limit is $9 lakh and property limit is only to residential property. And this is what has been written in the option number B. Option number A says that NRI status, right? NRI status does not give unlimited repatriation right. Option number C, so there is no such something like 10-year lock-in. No, nothing locking like. right? Because the property were purchased after becoming NRI, so no lock-in is applicable. Now, option number D says that $1 million. No, no, no. Actually, this is a rule which apply to the NRO balance route. Okay, not to the direct property sale proceed. So option D is wrong. So remember, you can just remember it like this: 2 houses, original dollar only. 2 houses, original dollar only. So only 2 residential property and only foreign exchange are invested. Only original foreign exchange are invested. Profit not allowed under the route. So you can remember it like this: sale proceed to property plus principal. Okay, so repatriation of property sale proceed by NRI is not unlimited. Maximum 2 property, maximum amount is the foreign exchange that you bought. Nothing more than that. Now let's shift our focus to the next question that we have. So the next question is on your screen, as you can see. Again, one case study based on letter of credit. Very good question, case study. So it's all about, Messr Sign-On Jewelers, a leading domestic jewelry retailer in Mumbai, and he want to import 10 kg of gold bullion from Dubai. Okay, and for the festive season supply and sales, obviously demand is there. To pay the overseas supplier, the company requests to open a letter of credit with a 90-day UJAN's credit period, offering 110 cash margin as security. Now the question is the bank allowed to open an LC for importing gold as per the RBI rule? So is it allowed? That's the basic question. Option number A says that yes, bank can open the LC since the client is providing more than 100% cash margin. B, the bank can open the LC only if the gold is being imported from a nominated agency. C, the bank cannot open an LC for the import of gold. Import must be on 100% cash basis or direct remittance only. C, the bank can open an SSB LC, a standby letter of credit, instead of regular LC for this transaction. Very good question. So now let's go through the core concept in this particular question. So this question hinges on a special restriction, right, imposed by RBI on the gold import. So RBI has imposed a restriction on gold import. Yeah, restriction imposed by RBI on the gold import. So remember, this gold, they are treated like a sensitive. Gold is treated like a sensitive and non-essential commodity. Sensitive non-essential commodity, right, from a foreign exchange management perspective. So therefore RBI has clearly stated under the master direction that banks are not allowed to open LC or any other credit instrument for the import of gold by the domestic entity. So banks are not allowed to open letter of credit or to open any kind of credit instrument for the import of gold by the domestic entity. And this restriction apply irrespective of the amount of import. Irrespective of the amount of import, this restriction is always there. Irrespective of the UJAN's period, the restriction is always there. And cash margin. The question is why? Because RBI want gold import to be fully funded upfront, right? Not through bank intermediate credit. So what is allowed then? Okay. So remember, what is allowed then? So RBI says that, okay, you can import good, but import must be done on the 100% cash basis, no credit basis. First point. Second point, payment must be made through the direct remittance. So payment must be made through the direct remittance. No letter of credit, no UJANs, no SBLC or DAP debitum, right? So even if importer is ready to give 110% cash margin or keep full fund with the bank still cannot open letter of credit. Please note it down. So now apply this concept to this case. Clearly they have mentioned it is gold bullion 10 kg, right? Importer is a domestic jeweler. Payment mode requested LC with 90-day UJANs. So bank must reject the LC request because import must be on 100% cash or direct remittance basis. So what is the correct answer? Yes, option number C is correct. What about A? A is wrong because cash margin does not override RBI prohibition. B is wrong because even importing from nominated agency does not permit LC facility for golden import. Option number C, what it says? Yeah, it is correct. D says standby LC. No. It is also a credit instrument and is equally prohibited. So remember, the rule is that for gold, no credit Only cash. That's it. Only cash. That's the rule. So tell yourself, LC is a loan-like facility. RBI say no loan for gold import. Now next question we have on your screen. If you think that these questions are you unable to understand clearly, please don't hesitate to hit the like button. Do hit the like button. This will motivate me to make more such content. Now friends, let's understand the transaction step by step. So they search Mumbai trader and import chemical from Germany, right? Now original invoice from German supplier is, how much? I think it is 50,000 pound. While the ship is still in international water, Mumbai trader sell the goods to Messrs Pune and Industrial Work. The sale is done under the High Sea Sale Agreement, HSS agreement. Mumbai trader add a 2% High Sea Sale commission. Now the question is, in which currency should the Pune industrial worker pay the HSS value to the Mumbai trader? Very good question it is. And the same was asked in the examination. There were 2 to 3 case study based on such examination. If you understand the basic logic in one question, you can easily solve them. Again I am repeating, Messrs Mumbai trader import chemical from Germany. Original invoice is 50,000 euro. So let me show you in pictorial manner so that you can easily remember it. So this is Mumbai trader and this is Germany. What they have done? They have imported, right, chemicals. They have imported, let me write down completely. They have imported chemicals. Worth how much? Invoice is I think 50,000 pound, isn't it? Fine. And when the ship is still in the international water, Mumbai trader sell the good to Pune Industrial Work. The good is ship is still in the international water, and the sale is done, under HSS High Sea Sale Agreement. Fine. And Mumbai trader, they add 2% HSS commission. They add 2% commission. Now the question is, in which currency should Pune Industrial Work pay the HSS value to the Mumbai trader? Euro, dollar, and of Indian rupee, either euro or INR. So now the question is not about where the goods are. It's about who is interacting with whom, right? The question is all about who is interacting with whom. So remember, this question is not about where the goods are. It's all about who is interacting with whom. So here on one hand we have seller, that too HSS seller, right? And the name is Mumbai trader. The name is Mumbai trader. And then we have the buyer. Again it is High Speed Sale buyer, High Sea Sale buyer, and the name is Pune Industrial Work. It's not about where the goods are, it's about who is transacting with whom. Both are Indian resident. Both are Indian resident. Even though goods are outside India, original supplier is foreign, still the HSS contract is a domestic transaction between two Indian residents, isn't it? Now apply the FEMA rule. What does the FEMA say? Any transaction between two Indian rupee, they must be settled in INR unless specifically permitted otherwise. So for high seed sale value, please remember, for high C sale value, this include original cost. It also include 2% commission or markup, whatever you call it. And this is payable by Pune Industrial Work to Mumbai trader. Since both are resident Indians, so payment must be made in INR. Now what about the euro payment? Yeah, very good question. Because he got from German supplier euro of $50,000, 50,000 euro. So the euro payment to the German supplier will be made by the Pune Industrial Work. So what will happen? This Pune Industrial Work will make payment to the German supplier, and this will be made by the Pune Industrial Work directly in euro through the ready bank. But that is a separate transaction, right? So remember, resident to non-resident, which can be in foreign currency, and the HSS margin and sale price resident to resident INR only. So remember, margin will be paid in INR only. That's why option number C is correct, right? So HSS margin in India in INR only. Please remember it. Okay. So remember, this high seed sale, high C sale, sorry, seed not C, high C sale happened before goods enter the India's custom. So good has not entered the India's custom. Before that, this high C sale happened, and it can either be two Indian resident. So if it is between two Indian resident, the settlement must be done in INR. And if it is between overseas supplier and Indian resident, the settlement may happen in the foreign currency. I hope this concept is crystal clear. Now we have a lot more case study based question. If you want to me to bring the part 2 lecture, just write part 2 in the chat box, and the remaining question will be explained in our paid course. If you want to get access to that, just WhatsApp me on this particular number. So I hope the question we have discussed gives you a clarity of the concept. Please hit the like button, do subscribe our channel. We are going to bring more and more videos on the foreign exchange certification program. Thank you. Have a very nice day.